Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Gay with God podcast, a safe place for us to share our stories and support one another. How long did we know? What challenges did we face? Did we lose our faith? When did we find our way back home? Or are we still searching? The stories you hear on this podcast will melt your heart and strengthen your belief that in God, all things are possible, and you can be authentically gay with the God of your understanding. I am your host, Midge Noble, and I am very honored that you are here. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gay with God podcast. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I hope that it was peaceful and that you had plenty of time to enjoy those that you chose to be with. We spent a very quiet Thanksgiving at the cabin, and not that things didn't go wrong. I mean, it was interesting that, we didn't have a time schedule. There was no one coming for dinner. It was just my beloved and I and the fur babies, and so there were no expectations. I didn't have to talk to anybody. I didn't have to have conversation. I could just chill, and yet things weren't perfect. The door to our kitchen cabinet fell off. Now, it wasn't just a fluke. We've been kind of babying it for a while. It would come off its little thing, and I could put it back on for a little bit, and it didn't seem to be a problem. But in the middle of Thanksgiving preparations, fell right off. So we had to take the whole thing off, and we didn't have time to fix it at that moment because you know how it goes. It's right at the time where everything's happening. And like there's nothing to do, and then there's everything to do at the end of a Thanksgiving meal prep and baking. However, the expectation of making it perfect, having everything go exactly right, was taken out. And there were no filler conversations. When we were silent, we could just be silent. There was no need to fill in the silence. Talking is highly overrated because we sometimes say things and enter a conversation or inject our own thoughts into a conversation just to make sure that there is no silence. And I wondered this morning, what is that really about? I know from my own experience, my brother and I were the family comedians, and we definitely could keep something rolling during a family get-together, whether we were just our immediate family or whether we were in a larger family get-together. It was as if the silence would happen and last too long, something bad would happen. Now, I'm speaking for myself, and I don't remember consciously thinking this, but as I look back, I do think that I was very concerned about what could come up in that silence if we didn't keep things light and if we didn't keep things funny. As many of you may know, it is the Advent season. It is a time for us to prepare, to expect the coming of Jesus Christ. And even though Christmas Day and Christmas Eve into Christmas Day is not probably Jesus's birthday, but it is a time set aside in the calendar for us to remember, to expect the coming of Jesus when he was born. And let's just leave it at that whenever that happens. So in that expectation, in that preparation, it's really not about words. It's really not about filling in the silence. It's not about fear. It's not about needing things to be perfect. There is nothing to do. There is nothing really to put into an effort because we're not the ones doing it. We are just waiting. We are expecting. And the preparation is not about pies or presents or anything like that. It's about preparing inwardly our hearts, our minds, our emotions. It is an expectation of silence. The Advent word from today is said. And this one person gave a reflection, Lindsay Barrett Adler, reflected in my last role as a fundraiser at a Quaker school. I attended meeting for worship every Wednesday morning at 8:30. We, as a school community, sat in silence and waited for the Spirit to move us to speak. Before my first meeting, I wondered how I, perhaps the most extroverted of all the extroverts in the world, would sit with my mouth shut for 30 minutes. I have to say something. Turns out, I don't. This horribly scary thing became something I cherished each week, the chance to take a break from saying anything and listening for God's voice instead. I very much connected to this write up today because sometimes words can be so exhausting. Sometimes preparing to say something inspirational or to say something that would change the course of history is overwhelming. And I know that we all have been bombarded lately with a whole lot of words and a whole lot of people trying to sway you one way or the other. And I encourage you as you go through this holiday season to prepare yourself for silence. That there may be times that are uncomfortable in your family get togethers. There may be times just in your circle of friends where everybody is raving about something or making a big deal about something, and we are just almost compelled to join in as if we sat back and just listened, we were somehow not being supportive or not being a member of our certain groups. And yet, being able to take that moment to just sit with it. And if you don't have anything to say, it's okay to just listen. Sometimes, even if you have something to say, it is okay to just listen. Jesus actually gave us a pretty good indication that there were times that we don't have to speak. And in those times, it's when he was usually cornered by the Pharisees or someone else, and they would try to get him to say something in order to catch him, in order to find a way to crucify him. And yet, in those moments, he would either slip away in the crowd or he would say nothing. And those were the times that were so powerful because he knew how to balance his life. He knew when he was supposed to be doing something else and not be a part of that moment. And he was very good about that. And his apostles, I think, were also very in tune with when they needed to shuffle him away. And he knew when he needed to shuffle away or when he just needed to divert it by maybe not answering, but asking a question of the people who were trying to trap him. So in our time through this holiday period, we can learn a lot from the silence that we are so sometimes afraid of. That silence can be very powerful, and silence can be a way to heal. Silence can be a way to just change the moment. I would love for you guys to sit and just listen to what comes up for you about silence. Is it fear? Is it uncomfortable because of the expectation that you should offer something? What is it about silence that maybe pulls you in to a conversation or a moment where you just don't want to respond? What is it? Is it fear? Is it not knowing what to say, how to say it, or being socially uncomfortable? For many of us that hadn't come out and we were still going to family get-togethers and people were asking, who are you dating? Do you have a boyfriend? Do you have a girlfriend? Do you have this? Do you have that? And I think a lot of times we might have created a bunch of nonsensical or unnecessary conversations to avoid anybody a millisecond of moments where they could interject that question and it was headed toward us and that all eyes were on us and we couldn't do anything about it except for usually to lie or divert or to just laugh. But it was trying to fill that silence up so that no one could ask the question that we dreaded. That's why authenticity is such a gift, even though it may be hard to get to that, but it's such a gift because no longer will people be asking that question. Now, some of you guys, and for me as well in my past, I was not invited to certain events because I was not going to be silent about the answer. Once I knew, I was going to tell anybody who dared to ask me, "Where is your boyfriend?" And I would be giving the answer, "Her name is Sue, and she's with her family." And my dad was not going to let me do that. And so I was uninvited to our family reunions. And it was very uncomfortable during certain holidays because we would have family come over. And I was uncomfortable because I knew that they were homophobic and that it would make a big row in the house. And it just was unbearable during certain moments of those years. And so I do believe that when I was younger, my brother and I just fed off of each other to keep laughter going so nothing uncomfortable would happen. And then later on, keeping the conversation going in a direction away from my truth was what I wanted. And now I think people fill in the silence because they don't want to give me an opportunity to say anything because my family likes to now live in just this bubble of unknowing, and they don't want to talk about what this country is like. They don't want to talk about who's in charge. They don't want to talk about the fact that if they didn't have a chance to vote, they would have probably voted for him, and some of them probably did. And so for my whole lifetime, silence has always been, probably for myself and for other people at different times in their lives, not a good thing. So can we find the the silence as a comfort and find silence as a moment to connect with the God of our understanding? And before going to any celebrations over this holiday season, it would be really good if we could all just take that moment, several moments, many moments, to center ourselves in the silence of just being authentically quiet. Not that we won't have a conversation or enter a conversation, and allowing ourselves to just be quiet. And if challenged, be prepared to say, "I prefer not to talk about this today." And there's going to be a silence that follows that that's going to be extremely uncomfortable, and you're going to want to jump in there and just save yourself or someone else from the silence. But I bet you somebody else is going to do that for you who hasn't planned for that moment. And it's okay. It is okay to be uncomfortable. It is okay to feel awkward. It is okay to feel like you need to rescue someone else. It's okay to feel like you need to say something so people won't come after you. So just prepare. Prepare to be in that silence and to remember that there's nothing wrong with talking as long as you have made a decision to speak and you can say something that is authentically you and something that you've really prepared to say. Instead of just joining things to deflect or to fill in or to just be a part of something. Talking is highly overrated, and I've said way too much already. So, my beloveds, I want to thank you so much for honoring me with your time today. Please remember to check out our Facebook group, Gay with God, where we do a monthly group entitled My Faith Journey. If you need support to help you through your coming out or faith journey, go to the show page at empoweredmidge.podbean.com, scroll down to the bottom, and see how you can connect with me. I offer you a complimentary and confidential session just to get to know each other and to see what you may want to explore deeper in an ongoing coaching relationship. If you are listening to this podcast and are questioning whether you can be gay and be in a relationship with the God of your understanding, if you identify as LGBTQIA+, are not even sure if you are gay, God has always been within you. Even when you didn't know it, You have always been gay with God. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned to see how you can join the Gay with God community. And as always, you are loved. I want to invite you to become a part of the Gay with God community. How can you do that? Stay connected by messaging me your thoughts and comments in the comment section under the downloads of the show on the Gay with God show page. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen and share so we can increase our community outreach and be a light to those who are struggling to claim their faith. Consider being a sponsor so I can highlight your service in our community. We are all worthy of respect and a relationship with the God of our understanding. I want to thank you in advance for supporting this podcast. Together, we as a community will keep this show visible and our community stronger. Deep gratitude to my friend Tim McClendon of Tim McClendon Music for allowing me to use an excerpt from Interlude 4, a song found on his CD entitled Sundance.